Hey guys, today we're talking about the Netflix original movie Roma, and it's been getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and this is quite surprising when it comes to Netflix movies because for the most part, Netflix has been getting shitted on when they come to the original movies. Even though they've had high blockbuster, big budget movies, star-studded cast, none of them seem to be well received by critics until Roma. That shows that Netflix is really doubling down when it comes to its original content, and it's really coming for Hollywood's neck. And Roma is the perfect film for that because Roma is something. Let's get to the director. Roma's being directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Now, if you haven't heard that name before, you've probably seen his movies before. He directed The Prisoner of Azkaban, he directed Children of Men, and he directed Gravity. He's directed quite a few movies over the past 30 years, and you've probably seen quite a few of them because he's a phenomenal director, and that's what Netflix is doing. Netflix is going after phenomenal directors and putting their work on their platform. But let's talk about the movie itself, Roma. What makes Roma so good that critics are salivating over it? What makes Roma that movie that can get Netflix an Oscar win? Because it's gonna be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. And if that means anything to you guys, that is a big deal because the Oscars are the creme de la creme of movie awards. So let's talk about the movie. Roma is a movie that is very subtle. When I mean by subtle, it's a movie that is definite Oscar type of movie because the movie itself isn't your typical blockbuster that you see nowadays. This movie is on a smaller scale while having an epic backdrop. And what I mean by that is this movie takes place in Mexico, in the city of Roma, and it's kind of semi-autobiographical because Alfonso based this on his nanny and his life when he was growing up in Mexico. So the movie takes place in his life and it follows his nanny and his family as they live their mundane day-to-day lives. And that's what makes the movie so interesting. It's not a grand scope of a story. It's a story about a family and just them going day by day. And if you're used to watching Netflix movies, that's not the type of movie Netflix usually has on their platform. A subtle movie about day-to-day life of people in 1971 in Mexico doesn't seem that exciting. And for the most part, especially the first half an hour of the movie, it's really not that exciting. Like, if you're one of those people who aren't into the subtle, slow burn of movies, you're not gonna get it. But this movie definitely picks up as the movie goes on because after you invest your first half an hour into the movie, like I said, it's not that exciting. So now you're invested in the characters, especially Cleo the nanny and the children's mother. You're invested into these characters and you're watching the movie go up and now you're starting to realize like, I like these characters. I wonder what's gonna happen next. And the backdrop is what makes the movie even more enticing because in the backdrop, this is happening in 1971 in Mexico, and during that time there were massive protests by students against the government. So you have that going on in the background, like protests, fighting, violence, all that going up in the background, and these guys are just living their lives. And it's that bombastic outside life that's kind of contrasting with their more subtle, quiet life. And then it follows the trials and tribulations that they go through because Cleo is their nanny. Cleo actually raise the kids more because their father and mother really don't have time for the kids, so they're really under her care, and it's dealing with her and her life because as Cleo is caring for these children, she gets pregnant, and that might throw a wrench in her plans because of just the way that the domestic life is situated back then. And then the kid's father leaves the mother, which adds another layer of what is going on. Like, you have these two women who are at different crossroads of their lives, who are different social stature, having the same thing happen to them. Cleo gets pregnant and her boyfriend leaves her. The mom gets left by the husband, and now they have to raise these kids alone in Mexico where they're running out of money and all these things are going on. And the movie never makes it seem like, it never shows the gravity of the scope. Because usually when these kind of things happen in movies, you see a big bombastic gravity ensuing. Like, it's a big thing, a big ripple. But they maintain their lives. They go day in and day out continuing to do what they need to do to provide for the family as well as try to figure out their own solutions. And as the movie goes on, it's 2 hours long, roughly 2 hours long, a little bit over. And as the movie goes on, you start to become more invested. And there's a lot of feel-good moments in the movie. Granted, there's a lot of lows in the movie too because the movie is about day-to-day life. And if you know anything about life because you're watching this movie, you obviously live it. Like, life has its ups and downs. And this movie shows the ups and downs of the family. And it didn't need to get too deep into the background of the revolution. It didn't need to get too deep into what the men were doing when they left the women. It didn't need to do anything but be about this family and how they're just gonna get by and make it work. And the fact that the movie is shot in black and white adds another dynamic to the movie. Because I'll be the first one to say it, I'm a millennial through and through. Like, I'm not about that black and white movie life. Like, I don't like old classic black and white movies. I need my color. I need to see the color to bring vibrance and life to a movie. But this movie removed it all and gave us a black and white movie. And it had more character and more life than any movie I've seen recently. So I can see why the critics are slobbering all over this to be an Oscar contender. Because it really hits home, and it's about a life of people who you're not used to seeing. This is a story. If Alfonso never made this movie, this would be a story you've never heard of. This is someone's existence that you would never hear about. And it's those kind of movies that make me truly appreciate cinema, because we get a deep dive into a story we would otherwise never see. So I was really ecstatic about this movie after watching it, because when I went into it, I'm like, man, these Oscar snobbish movies, I'm not trying to see this. But after watching it, I really enjoyed the subtlety and just the overall feel of the movie, because like I said, the background is epic, but it's a small self-contained story about human beings living their day-to-day life and trying to make it work despite what's going on around them. And for that, I really commend this movie. It's a story that I would have never looked to watch. Like, if Netflix never put it in front of my screen, I'm not looking for Roma. But the fact that it did it and I watched it and it gave me a new appreciation for cinema. Like, this is when you think about movies and you think about cinema, this is the kind of movie you think about. These are the reasons why movies are so great. These kind of stories being brought to the big screen are the reasons why they're great. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on Roma. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you think of this movie? Do you think it's worthy of the Oscar buzz? Do you think the critics are overhyping it? Or is it really that good? I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below, guys. And if you liked the video, definitely hit the thumbs up. If you want more reviews, hit that subscribe button, because we will be talking about more movies throughout the year. Anyway, guys, until the next time, binge on.